And we are live. Good morning. Happy Friday. It's Friday, August 5th, 2016. Welcome to the ZIBWAM, the Zoom In between Wall and Main, between Wall Street and Main Street. Wall Street level financial advice for Main Street small business. We show you how to make your company work like a Fortune 500 company. That's the goal. That's the objective. And that's why we're here. So this week we have another very special guest. We're going to be looking at, I'll give you the quick backstory. We have, all right, and first of all, it's going to be a little confusing. We have JP and then we have PJ. Okay, and so hopefully nobody's having PB and J this morning because then it's going to be really confusing. So JP and PJ are from Checkbook. We're going to be having a look at the Checkbook product. JP reached out to me originally. I forget how, JP. Were we introduced by somebody or did you just email me? I forget how we originally got in touch.
Yeah, so I knew Scott Woodworth. I used to work with him in a past company, and I know you had worked with him, so that was the mutual connection, and we connected on LinkedIn and went from there.
Got it. So I had JP give me, a fairly quick demo of Checkbook, and I was immediately impressed. It looked like a really easy way to get people paid online without having to jump through hoops. And frankly, any of the other services that I know of that does this kind of thing, it takes a lot of work, frankly, to get a payee set up. You have to do all kinds of things and get approved here. It just looked drop dead simple, which is what most intrigued me about the product. And so with that, I'm going to kind of turn things over to PJ now. And PJ, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And
Sure.
I'd love to start off by having you tell us just a little bit of background, who you are, what you do, whom you do it for.
Sure. And thank you for that wonderful starter, Seth. You set the right tone. My name is PJ Gupta, and I am part of the founding team at Checkbook. Checkbook.io. Quickly, sort of the short version, my background is payments. I used to be at Visa. I was in charge of Visa's data centers and network. And so sort of a transition there from core network technology to payments. But that's where I got my taste for payments. I saw Visa's network from within. From the outside, it just seems like it works, but from within, it's a lot of things cobbled together. And I saw the world of payments needs a change, and using technology to enable that change to make it simpler, easier, faster. The underlying philosophy is that what is a payment? It's nothing but a transfer of a little bit of data, a few kilobytes of data from one point to the other. So why should people have to go through so many hoops? With that sort of the core philosophy and principle, I started taking on a problem that it seems nobody else here, at least in Silicon Valley, was willing to take on, the 100-year problem of paper checks. Credit cards have become simpler, both to pay and to accept. But nobody is taking on this check issue, which has still been around for so many years, and everything is, they're talking about Bitcoin, mobile payments. None of those things work with the traditional businesses. So that's the background. We started about 2 years back, and the idea was simple: take paper checks and make them simpler. And we came up with creating a Check 21 image, digital image of a paper check, and transmitting instantly in email to the recipient. The key difference, and you highlighted, you alluded to it yourself, Seth, is that the problems have been, using traditional payment systems. I mean, if you have PayPal, there's sort of two incumbent problems. One is the 2.9%, and that doesn't scale for large amounts. You're sending a $1,000 payment. Do you really want to pay $29, $30 just to send that payment? And that seems to be the case with most payment systems. The other one was the recipient onboarding, and that's a pain. If I'm sending money to someone, and if I'm the recipient, why would I need to onboard myself and go through hoops
let me stop you there, PJ, because I know this is going to be a looming question right on that topic.
Yes.
What about the security of it? We want to be able to pay people. We want the security, but we also want the simplicity of not having to go through a whole process. So how is that balanced well?
So that's a good point. we when we send the digital image of the check, we only show the last 4 digits of the bank account number. And we give the recipient 2 choices. We keep it simple. Either they can print it out. Once they print it out, we of course reveal the whole paper check, that's just like sending them a paper check. But we have a better option, which is they can deposit it online. And in deposit online, they enter their bank info. Again, we use third parties like none other than Intuit, and there are other companies like Plaid and Yodlee, which help us fetch the account number in real time from their bank account by using their online credentials, which are of course not stored on our servers. Or you can enter it manually. So once you have the recipient's account number, then we make a Check 21 or an ACH transaction to their bank account. So specifically about security, when the recipient initially receives the email, they need to do a bank account verification to get it deposited in their account. Or they print it out, and once they print it out, they've identified themselves with their email. At that point, the security of basically the paper check system takes over. It's like you send them a paper check. So that's how we address security broadly speaking. There's, security is in a way my specialty, network security particularly, so I could go on talking about it. Happy to answer any specific questions you have, but basically the sender and the recipient authenticate themselves for the first time only.
And if I choose to print it,
yeah,
I just print it on a regular piece of paper and the bank will let me deposit that?
So yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Check printed on any paper is a legally valid document. There is no law that says the background needs to be pink or blue or whatever. The issue that we have, there's 3 ways of depositing a printed check, roughly speaking. You could take a picture with your smartphone. You could go to an ATM. Those 2 work seamlessly because they're really just taking the image, and the image is always grayscales. Now, when you take it to a teller, tellers generally know, and it's part of their training, to accept checks, and if they suspect something, what they do is they put a hold on it. And so that's the option that we discourage, but there are some people who do that. The key here, though, is for good reason. I mean, for us, we would love to have every single person deposited online for the simple reason that once you've done depositing online, all subsequent checks that anybody sends to you using our system, they automatically get deposited in your bank account, and you get an image of a check in email saying, here's the check Joe Random or some company sent to you, and this was automatically deposited to your account without having to do anything, without having to sign up for any service. So that's really the long-term goal here, but you're right in terms of printing it out. The third option of taking it to the bank teller sometimes causes a little bit of confusion. It's the least desired option, and it's the least used option, fortunately. But that's really how things are.
Right. And frankly, if I can offer my own opinion on this, if you're going to use a service like this to pay things electronically and then interrupt the very point of that service by printing something, somebody should smack you in the face with that printed check. Okay. The whole point is to do this online more securely and more efficiently. So you're taking an efficient process, in my opinion, and making it inefficient if you're going to print the thing out. So just use the online option.
All right, Seth, you're officially our spokesman now.
Okay. I have a question for you. So you talked about, where your experience came from. What would you say has been the most important technological development in your field the past few years, and how has that impacted or influenced your work at Checkbook?
2 things. One is the ability to do online bank verifications, because prior to that, you had to make micro deposits that would take 1 to 2 business days. Nobody wants to wait. The other thing is really the ability to send a check and email with the front-end technologies that have developed. It shows up in the email as a clickable image. And working with those technologies and connecting with the cloud so that you have a seamless connection both from the recipient and the sender and those records stay in the cloud forever. So we never delete them. So every single thing that you do is available to you for the rest of your life at one simple click in your email without having to log in any place. So basically, the answer to your question is it's the APIs that have come up that allow us bank verification real time, and just the development of technology stack with the cloud, with the front end frameworks that have come up that have allowed us to do this. And of course, the third one, it's not quite a technology thing, but Check 21 rule was the genesis of all this. The federal government requirement that a check mandatorily must be imaged when it's cleared. So what we're doing is we're flipping it around. Instead of taking a paper check and imaging it, we're generating the image to begin with. And that way we bypass the first step.
Gotcha. Now, can I pay payroll with Checkbook? Can I pay my employees using Checkbook?
That's actually one of the most common use cases for us.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of SMBs just come in, because again, the whole thing is there's no sign up for the recipient. There's no enrollment. You just come in, put in, joe@somedomain.com, their email address, name, the amount, done.
All right, so I want to get to a demo in a second, but I'm curious. So let's say I'm using ADP to process payroll, or Paychex, or Gusto.
Yep.
How do I get them to integrate with you so that you can pay those paychecks through Checkbook?
So we're already integrated with QuickBooks.
Okay.
And in other words, if you just add our app, add our, I think JP will be able to tell you our app in the...
It's in apps.com?
Yeah, it's QuickBooks App Store, apps.intuit.
Yeah, if you just go to apps.com, it gets you all the QBO integrated apps.
So there you go. So we're already there. So QuickBooks,
There you are.
What happens with QuickBooks is you select print later if it's a bill or a check. And instead of printing now, you select print later after you've added our app.
Mm-hmm.
And we automatically just take that check and send a digital copy and send the sender, i.e. the user of QuickBooks, a copy of the email saying, "Well, Seth, we just sent Joe Random, the recipient of this, a check, and here's a copy for your record."
So once I've integrated Checkbook with QBO, anytime I hit print later and then save that, it's going to trigger Checkbook to do its thing. I won't have an opportunity to say, you know what, don't do this one through Checkbooks. So it's all or none, or...
Well, if you don't want to do it through Checkbook, then you don't click print later and you just click print now, in which case you'll print it on paper.
Got it. Okay. But obviously the idea is once you're using Checkbook, why would you want to, there might be, be some, I've had this. I've had like some vendor who's just very old school and says, you know what, I'd rather just get a check. And I'm like, you know what, I'd rather punch you in the face. No, I'm kidding. But okay, you know what, I think this is a great time for a demo because now I'm actually really excited to see what this looks like. Everybody with me? We want to see what Checkbook looks like? Beautiful.
All right, JP, I'll let you handle it.
All right, can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yep, I can hear you.
So I am actually on the App Store on QuickBooks, and I'm not going to actually download it because I already have, but I've basically typed in Checkbook, and that took me from the App Store to our app landing page. So it's as simple as downloading the app, and you're good to go. So I will actually show you what PJ was just talking about. I will click on vendors. I've already got a couple sample vendors in here. Let me just move this screen a little bit. So as a vendor, if I want to go to John Doe, new transaction, write a check. It's going a little slow. It's as simple as typing in an account, advertising, test, $1. Be sure to note the print later button is selected right here. So I'm going to select it again. And it's as simple as that. So something worth mentioning is that the way our API works with QuickBooks Online is every 10 minutes we'll do a sweep of all QuickBook accounts that have the Checkbook app, and we'll process the digital checks on a 10-minute basis. So if it doesn't happen immediately, it will happen no later than 10 minutes after you click Save and New. So what I've done, just so I can actually show you the next part of the process, the receiving side, is I sent a digital check. One second. From my Checkbook account to an email. And this is a first-time recipient. So I just want to show you guys what it looks like when you receive a digital check for the first time. So this is my inbox. This is what the person through QuickBooks would receive in their email inbox. The vendor would receive this. I open the email, and you'll see this template right here. Now, please note that you guys have customization ability. So you can change the logo here. You can add different content or copy so that it reflects your business or or the specific opportunity. And you have two options, and PJ went over them. We're going to go with deposit online, but as PJ mentioned, you do have that print check option if you should so desire.
Can we customize it to say like losers over the print check one and winners over deposit online?
Yeah, notice the red. Notice the red. I don't like this red. Go with green. We did that on purpose. So we're depositing online. So you see here we've taken you to our landing page, checkbook.io. We're going to continue to go green, free deposit online. And this is where we have the first part of a verification process. We have dual verification, email and phone number. So you can either sign up as an individual or business. I'm going to sign up as an individual, but a lot of your business customers should sign up as a business. For now, I'm going to click individual here. Sorry, Seth.
Quick interjection for businesses, we don't need a phone number.
Right. So I'm going to type in my phone number, and I'm going to get an SMS. Checkbook sends a code that I should receive momentarily here. Okay, I just got it. So we're going to type in 478999. Whoops. 478999. And verify. So here's the cool part, and this is what PJ was alluding to when he said, you know, one of the cool things about this day and age is the APIs available with some of the leading financial institutions, some of the largest banks. So instead of having to go the micro deposit route, you can actually choose your bank, which is Wells Fargo for me. And you can type in your username and password, and that will make an API call to the bank, and you can actually select which bank account you want the funds to deposit in. So this is one option for depositing online. The other option is going that manual route of typing in your routing number, your checking number, waiting for a micro deposit, which happens overnight, and then confirming that micro deposit. But what we found is that the majority of our audience, the majority of our online depositors will go this route. They'll do the instant verification. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my username and password. Go on down, bank login. And you can see all my different bank accounts here. So I'll choose the one that I want. Go down here and click confirm, and I'm good to go. So for the purpose of this demo, I've actually already selected a bank account, and for anti-fraud reasons, we only allow a bank account to be used once. So I'm not actually going to finish the process here, but what I welcome all of you to do is reach out to me, and I'll send you a test check, and you can finish the process. You can deposit that $1 that I'll send you. Just to get a feel for how the process completes. But as you can see, it takes less than a minute to link in your bank account as a check recipient. So So that's the process. Any questions?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. Just to clarify, when you say you can only use a bank account once, that obviously means that only one person can link Checkbook to one bank account. The idea being that two different people wouldn't have a need to deposit into the same account through Checkbook.
And PJ can probably talk to the security reasons behind that. What we do allow is for a user to have multiple bank accounts that they can choose from. So if, say, this check comes in and I want to deposit it to my business account, then I can do that. If I want to deposit it to my personal checking account or personal savings account, I can do that. So I can have, as a user, multiple banks, but that bank account can only be used once.
By one user. That makes sense. And actually, I think the security protocol should follow pretty logically on that, is that if you allow multiple people to access the same bank account, it could lead to all kinds of problems. So here's a question I have. This is obviously very straightforward in terms of me wanting to pay any individuals. But let's say I wanted to use Checkbook to pay my credit card bill. Is that something I can do?
You can. I mean, the whole idea is you should be, just like you can send a check to any entity, you should be able to use Checkbook, online Checkbook, to send a check. What happens is you need an email to pay your, whoever the credit card issuer is. And some of the large companies that we are working with, Time Warner, couple of large law firms, insurance companies. We've already, what happens is the first time their accounts receivable gets an email with a digital check, they sometimes call us. So the short answer is yes, you can. The full answer is that make sure you have the right email for accounts receivable, because it is going to go through email. There is if you go to our website, I don't like talking about this, but it is there so you can see it. There is the ability to send an actual paper check. And that's something we don't talk much about, but it's there. It's not so for individuals. We offer a bunch of free checks. But when you send out paper, there's no free. We discourage that. But I just wanted to say that because people are going to see it, because sometimes, certain people from overseas, etc., they have requested, and occasionally we mail out paper checks. And what we do is, if somebody requests it, we get in touch with the recipient and proactively get their email address at times and input it in our system so that the same sender can subsequently send it digitally.
That makes sense. So ultimately, if I need to, I can send a check out if I don't know how to reach the right person at the company to find out what email address to use. Do you have a protocol in place that people can follow for, like, do I just call up my credit card company and talk to a customer service rep and say, hey, do you have an email address I can use to send you payments through Checkbook? Or how would I go about researching whether or not and where to send the money for, my credit card, or let's say a utility company that I might want to pay, or just to find out if they're in your system?
Good point. Right now, as you will see, the integration, so this is somewhat a little bit under the wraps, but I'll talk about it in general terms. We're working with Intuit because, remember, it's integration through QuickBooks, so it's Intuit who controls the API. To make this more interactive, as opposed to print later to have to show modals. So the short answer is, over time, you're gonna see more interaction. Currently, how do you get the email address? Well, you just either call the 800 number or ask customer service saying, hey, I would like to send you a digital check. What's your accounts receivable email? And that generally gets to the right thing to start with. And if there's questions, they will call you or they will call us. And again, the key is we just need to do it once for one person, and subsequently anybody sending to that payee goes through, because it's all set up in our system.
Right. No, that makes sense. So that's the question I ask, is what's your accounts receivable email? Sorry, somebody else had a question. Go ahead.
I have a question from a fraud standpoint. I mean, it's, like, for example, Bill.com, you have segregation of duties sort of baked into the process. I mean, from what I'm seeing, it seems like you're making the assumption that the person writing the check is an honest person, as opposed if it's someone that's dishonest. It seems like this can make it more efficient in terms of stealing money if they set up dummy companies. And I mean, you've got looks like a standard signature. You're not doing individual signatures on the check, and so I guess would it be fair to say that you're relying on the internal control process outside of your product as opposed to something that's sort of baked in like Bill.com?
So the simple answer to your question, just like Bill.com, when you sign up for Bill.com, you verify. Same thing with QuickBooks. When you add the app, some company Inc., you're the controller, you have to verify your bank account when you add the app. And that's the security portion, number one. Number two, you're coming in through QuickBooks. We get some data from QuickBooks, basically your token. Mm-hmm. And given the API controls that QuickBooks has, that tells us that this is a QuickBooks user, how long they've been in the system. So there's always two-phase verification. One, through the bank account. Only entities, individuals, and businesses who have access to that bank account can verify it. And secondly, the security that is inherent in QuickBooks, we are basically incorporating. So we went through a large security audit with Intuit because obviously we're getting data from QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. Intuit is not going to let just any company authorize their app and pull in financial data from QuickBooks and start sending checks out. And that connection between QuickBooks and Checkbook, that's a secure connection. And that the token that we receive without getting any of the personal information does give us certain attributes about your account, such as, number one, it's an active and a valid account. Number two, how long it's been there. And then we do significant fraud detection on our own side. Just with your token and your ID, we have throttles based on controls. So if the check is going to be over $2,000, then you're going to get an email to upload a signature. If it's going to be over $5,000, you may get an email. There may be certain other verifications you may need to do, such as phone verification, which JP did, but as an individual, but as a business, you don't need to do phone verification. And then the tax ID, and we do real-time lookups on tax IDs through another partnership that we have. So there's a bunch of controls on the back end. Go ahead.
So this is something that is sort of baked into your process. It's not something when someone sets up the account, they make these selections to have these controls. It's basically something that you apply independently of what the company has done on your end.
That is correct, because we're the ones sending out the payment. If you're sending out, a bunch of small checks, a few $100s each, probability of fraud is lower. If you're sending out 2,000 to 5,000 or up to 10,000, it gets higher. The key here is a balance. Once we verify the basic info, once just like a bank, you open a bank account, first 30 days, everything's on hold. Next 30 days, they start clearing things up. And then after a few months, it's all, they give you the credit as you deposit the check. Mm-hmm. And we use a similar approach, except that we don't hold the check. We don't have the ability to hold funds, but we throttle based on the amount per transaction.
All right, we have another question here that I wanted to jump to. So, and I want to address it myself first, actually. So Sarah was asking about whether you can use this for AP payments or is it cash basis. This came up in another conversation in a similar vein recently for me, where I was discussing with somebody the process that I have with some of the clients that I consult for, where we're doing the whole accounting process outsourced. And a lot of times I just link up directly auto pay. And somebody said, well, what about accrual basis accounting? How do you manage that? The simple answer is, if I want to do something on an accrual basis using a service like Checkbook, then I simply enter a bill in QuickBooks Online. And as was explained at the beginning, then when I want to go pay them using Checkbook, I go to pay the bill, and I use the payment method of a check, and then I just check off print later. And as they explained, that will trigger Checkbook to send out the digital check on my behalf. So that's accrual basis for AP simply means I've entered a bill first. The payment is a separate event, which becomes the next step in the process. I mean, is there anything else, JP or PJ, that you would add to that as far as handling the accrual basis accounting and using a service like Checkbook?
The only thing I would add is just take a quick look at the screen. I don't know if this addresses what you're talking about, but this is the bill payment page on QuickBooks Online, and you have that print later option here. I've already created the bill, and this is paying the bill off. It's the same application. I would click.
So the easy answer is there's multiple kinds of checks in QuickBooks, and it handles both a regular check and a bill payment check.
Correct.
Bingo.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so anything that's marked print later, essentially, is if it's a check that's going to be printed, that's going to trigger Checkbook to do its thing.
Does it stay to print forever, or does it populate?
I would assume once Checkbook processes the check, it will clear it out the same way it would if I had actually printed it.
That is correct. It will. And also, Yvette had a question of how long the funds are available how long does it take for the funds to be available? Right now, it's 2 working days, so it's on the 3rd working day. But starting as early as August 31st, September 1st, we're going to be doing overnight settlements. So it's just like a Check 21 type scenario where the recipient verifies, and then we will effectively credit the funds the night and debit the payer, and the funds will be available next day.
Got it. Now, I want to show something on my side. I've switched the screen sharing over to my screen. So a while back, JP had sent me this test check. So here I am. I go to Free Deposit Online. Now, I've not used Checkbook before, right? So I click this, and it asks for my tax ID number. Fine. That's pretty easy for people to get. But then it says, enter my Checkbook password. I don't have a Checkbook password. So how do I get my Checkbook password in order to get through this process?
That is, are you seeing that right now? Are you doing this in real time?
Yeah. If you look on the screen, I've got it showing.
I'll tell you what that is. We made a change yesterday, and it's not live yet. This is right now what it's a change on the UI. The system is fine. What it should say is, please enter a password instead of please enter your checkbook.
Oh, so this is where I'm establishing what my Checkbook password should be.
Yeah, since you're a business, you do need to select a password. If you're an individual, you don't, because
I see. Okay.
We don't care.
No, so it's just the way it's written. You're right. It's a little confusing because it looks to me like and it is something that was flagged as an error. It was a part of our sprint. It got released yesterday, and you'll see it in production. Got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you a curveball.
No. This is what startups do. You know, we find things and we fix them.
Right. Yep. No, that's great. So, I mean, all right. Let's go to the chat. And let's see if there's any other questions, because I think that kind of...
Can I show
Is it only an app?
Oh, somebody's wondering, does this work with QuickBooks Desktop or just QBO?
Good point. Right now, just QBO, but we're working with QuickBooks Desktop, and should be, we're dependent on them. So they've told us Q3, now it looks like it's going to be Q4, but it will happen before the end of the year is my guess and hope. It probably will, because we're working with some of the senior people there. Oh, about the fee. Fee is 79 cents per check. There's no monthly fee. There's no setup fee. There is no, and I think, we have first 3 checks are free.
So it's just 79 cents per check, no matter what, no matter how many I produce, no matter what day of the week it is, what time of the day it is. I love some of these other services where it's like, well, you pay this much for the first 100 checks, and then after that it goes to this, or if it's ePay, it's that amount. But a printed check, if I use that service that you don't really want anybody to use, where I actually have you print a check and send it on my behalf, I assume that costs more.
That is correct. A printed check is a flat fee of $1. No discounts.
So yeah, it's actually not that much.
That's still cheaper than other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're hoping that we're going to see. Here's the thing. Here's the secret I'll tell you about the future. We haven't announced this publicly. Over time, we're going to keep reducing that 79 cents because it's going to become more and more efficient.
Right.
And the paper one is going to either stay the same, or we may increase it to decrease people using that option further. That's the way we're planning to take our pricing.
Right. And then, so going back to the security question, so the bottom line, and I want to make sure I've got the right sort of takeaway on this, is really the security is, in a sense, relying on the security that's been established through QuickBooks Online because it's working with QuickBooks Online. So I create a QuickBooks Online company, and I link it up to my bank account so that I can make payments out of my bank account. So any concerns one might have about the security of giving somebody access to initiate a payment out of my bank account is really tied into the same concern that you would have about the security of anybody accessing my QuickBooks Online company and being able to initiate payments out of it just the same. Is that about right, or?
It's I would say it's a little bit less because the authorization that you're giving us is by law, by ACH regulations and Check 21 regulation. We get an authorization from you per transaction through QuickBooks to debit you for the amount and credit the recipient. And we're audited by, and I can talk about the audit some other, if we have more time. And we're audited by third parties to make sure that we're compliant with NACHA regulations, which are basically federal regulations about surrounding ACH and Check 21. So that's the security protocol, and then we've been audited, among others, by Intuit too, because we have access to QuickBooks. So yes, you're giving us an authorization to debit your account and credit the recipient, but remember, we don't have online access to your account. Those credentials not stored. What we do is we create a check per your authorization, and that check goes digitally through the same clearing process as a paper check.
Right. And is it only possible to make a payment with Checkbook through QuickBooks Online, or could I go directly into the Checkbook website and schedule a payment to go to someone?
Oh yeah, you can go to the website anytime. The website gives you a lot more options. Because remember, like I said, we're working with QuickBooks to expand our partnership. Over time, you're going to see a lot more options. Over time, we may integrate with other providers, like you mentioned, Gusto. Okay, there's a big demand there, but various others. And the answer to your question through the website is, if you have an Excel spreadsheet, you want to send out 1,000 checks, just upload a spreadsheet with 1,000 rows of info, amount, email, name. And the system will automatically send out 1,000 checks. You want to send out requests for checks, which are basically invoices. You can do that. Those are all the options that are available on our website.
What about paying people overseas? If I want to pay somebody in the UK, is that possible?
We have not integrated with the banks overseas, but we don't publicly say this, but we've actually tested sending out papers. I mean, if the recipient prints out a check, we've tested it in Canada. We paid somebody in Hong Kong and India, and all three countries, they printed out the paper check, and there was some hold time, but the banks accepted it.
That's awesome.
And it went through. But the whole idea is to make it digital, so we're working with partners to get the financial institutions in these countries with online verification. And once that happens, sky's the limit.
And I just want to add one thing, because I know we've been talking about accounts payable a lot, but in terms of an accounts receivable functionality, we've gotten a lot of people saying that there's a void that has been left by IPN's departure. I don't know if any of you guys have felt the same way, but if so, we have the technology, the plugins, that I'm showing a screenshot right now, where you can actually use Checkbook.io infrastructure plugins to receive payment. You can put this type of login here, or this type of payments page in your website to collect monies from your clients. From
I was going to ask about the receivable side, so you can get paid through Checkbook as well.
Exactly. So I don't know if you
an
want.
API.
Cool. I also noticed he said free for individuals up to 25 checks a year.
Yeah, that's if
a
you come
month.
through our website. Yeah, that's true. For individuals, we just let you pay that 1, 2, 3 checks that you write a month. We don't charge you.
That's nice. It gets their feet wet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that one check I'm writing to the landlord or to the gardener? Okay, hey guys, go ahead, use it, and spread the word around.
Cool. Anybody else? Any questions?
JP, you can fill in some random stuff in there and just show them what pops up. And that's our API, and anybody with a website can use that. So that's for accounts receivable. That's not QuickBook related, but just an FYI.
If I have the same email address for personal and business, is it going to let me set up a personal and a business account?
No, that's again a part of the fraud check.
No, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, you can only be one, and those are federal regulations because.
Okay. Is there warnings all over the setup?
Yeah, that's why we ask you: are you an individual or are you a business? And are you going to continue using it as an individual or as a business? You can be one, not the other at the same time.
And it's very, it's Sarah, what you could do? I mean, what I would do if I wanted to be able to distinguish and have it for personal and business, let's say you don't have a personal email that you use. I mean, yeah, you could certainly get another email at like Gmail or whatever. But what I often do is using Google Apps for work, it's very easy using Google Groups to create an email alias. So I can create.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do.
.com. So, yeah, it's very, and then that just goes to your business email anyway. But these systems can't tell, as far as they can tell, it's just another email address. So that's a great way to deal with that.
Yeah.
Laura, do you want to unmute and kind of verbally ask your questions about the approval process? I know you and JP and PJ have been kind of talking about it in the chat, but I think it would be a very valuable discussion to be had, especially as we're rounding out the hour and almost finished. It would be good to kind of finish on a topic like this.
Yeah,
sure.
Good question.
I was just wondering, if there was an approval process so that somebody can actually fill out a check to be paid, and somebody else can actually approve the payment of that check. As an example, a company like this divorce place, what if somebody fills this out and sends a payment to themselves or to an invalid vendor? Is there a process whereby somebody else at the firm gets notification or can get a notification and pay it? Something like Bill.com, I guess. I haven't really done it on Bill.com.
Yeah, so 2 answers to that question. One is if you're doing from QuickBooks, you can set subdelegations and throttle access there. In this case of accounts receivable, when the payment is made, both the payer who is registered as well as the payee, both of them get notified. The throttle process is something that is available through our website. If you send checks through our website, if you're a mid-size or large company and you have, let's say, half a dozen people in accounting, and you want to give some people read-only access and some people the ability to send checks, and then one master admin who can manage the users, we have that ability in our portal. Yes.
Ooh, nice.
QuickBooks, again, we're limited by what the flow that QuickBooks provides because we cannot change it. That's Intuit's doing. That's really the way, so I think your question was, if I'm writing a check, can I have dual approval? Somebody writes the check and then...
Yeah, say I write a check for my client
to
pay one of their bills. Is there a way that they can go in and approve the actual payment?
Not in QBO, because QBO doesn't provide that kind of. But I think it goes back to what Dennis was asking about near the beginning, in terms of what Laura, I think you're addressing, is really the separation of duties, or the desire to have a separation of duties. But since this is mostly going through QBO, I think you're limited, as PJ pointed out, to what QBO provides as far as approval infrastructure, and there really is none there. You know, you just
well, you don't have to do this through QBO, though, do you?
Well,
you don't. If you come to our website, there you go. What JP showed you. If you do that in the control panel, you'll be able to set up. You'll be able to set up multiple users, and each user can be read only or read write. The ones who have the send ability are the administrative users who can actually create checks. Then there are those who will only be able to see the checks, and then there's a master administrator that can create users. Does it solve your issue of one person creating and then the other person approving? The answer is it's in the works. We will release it relatively soon. What is going to happen is the read users, the users who only have the ability to read the data, not to send anything, will be able to create checks, but they won't be sent out. And then the administrative users who have the ability to send checks will see those checks and can send them out.
So question, so can I go on, just assume I know somebody's account information, can I go onto your website and just set up a payment to somebody else or to myself or anything without any type of check? Like, you know, say I want to go in and send Yvette Shaw money, you know, from my client. Can I just go to your website and send a check without there being any confirmation that it's actually my bank account?
No, you
would have to represent the client.
Yeah, you need to represent the client. If you go to our website, then you will need to, how will you sign? I mean, you need to have an email address.
Clients are famous for giving us passwords.
No, but just assume, so it needs the bank password.
Yeah, it's your, that's, if you have somebody's bank password and MFA questions, then
okay, so does it, okay, I'm sorry, I must have stepped away for that.
That's what you need, and most people won't give those out, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Right.
No, you know what?
The client gave me his debit card number, the 3-digit.
Yeah, clients trust their accountants probably more than they should in many cases, but
they trust us.
That as accountants, we are the trusted advisors, and they trust it. You know, and the funny thing is, as much as we've seen cases of fraud on the part of bookkeepers and accountants, I always stop and shake my head when I read these stories or see it happen, because I think, why would you destroy your entire career? Because that's what you do. The minute you rip somebody off, when you're in that position as an accountant or bookkeeper, you destroy your entire career. Somebody will eventually find out that you stole the money. You'll never work in this business again, ever, if you do something like that. So I don't understand. To me, it's worth whatever you got away with stealing in the short term, again, minus the penalties and all the other stuff that goes with being caught. And again, you will get caught eventually. You know, to throw away your whole career and all the money you could have made in the long run, made sense to me. But going back to Checkbook, I get an important question answered that came up in the chat, and I was wondering it too. I'm assuming if I go onto the Checkbook website and initiate a payment, the way that gets into QBO is simply going to be through the bank feed, right? It's not like Checkbook's not going to sync that payment directly to QBO. It's going to clear. It's going to come in the bank feed. If it's a payment on a bill, I'll match it in as a bill payment at that point.
Say again, so you create a payment.
So I go directly to the checkbook.io website and create a payment to one of my vendors, let's say.
Yeah, that's not going to come into QuickBooks.
It'll come in when it clears my bank account through the bank feed.
Right?
Yes, it will. So just to be careful, that's an important point you mentioned, Seth. If you've added the app in QuickBooks, then you can go to the Checkbook dashboard, because you've added the app, and you'll see everything from QuickBooks into Checkbook. If you send anything outside of QuickBooks through Checkbook, that will be there in Checkbook, but because it's outside of QuickBooks, obviously we don't take data from Checkbook
and push it to QuickBooks. Right. It's a pull, not a push. So
yes,
It's still going to come down in the
push.
bank feed, right?
Yes, it will. It will come in the bank feed, but not in QuickBooks.
right, because
It's a pull. It's not a push. Just keep that in mind.
So what I envision as a service bureau is my clients would set up their account because they're the signers on the bank account,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow I'll become a user, and I would like to have no paying ability, but I'd love to be able to have it all set up, and all they have to do is push a button to pay. But I don't want to be a user that can pay. I just want to be a user who can enter.
Yeah, well, so let's see. What controls does QuickBooks have? QuickBooks
Well,
have right now.
I've got a lot of desktops, really small desktop clients. As a matter of fact, I have a client now who's been using it all year.
Okay.
I write her up once a year. So I'm envisioning a little client like that. I'm just going to go right to your website and pay all their bills, but then the owner would come in and actually send them.
Yeah. We will. It's not live today in the profile, but it is. It's one of the most requested features. So you're going to see it before the end of the month.
Because that's my approval. I mean, Bill.com has, date and time stamps and the approval and all the audit trail and everything.
Yep.
But as long as I can prove that I cannot send,
Yep.
I think for small companies that are not, audited, I think this is just perfect.
Yep.
So, and I hope you guys don't mind and are getting used to being compared to Bill.com.
You know what? Here's the thing: we may end up partnering because we're not really in the accounting flow process. That's what Bill.com does. If you try to send payments to Bill.com, you've got two options: either you use ACH or you send out a paper check.
And it's a pain in the.
Oh, you tell me.
And it takes forever.
Vendors will not do it. I get emails on the side going, I don't know about this, and just send me a check. And
yep.
And it takes forever for the payments to clear. By the way, did we get that question answered?
Days.
Did we how long does it take the payment to clear when I process through
3 days.
through Checkbook?
Not only that, I had a client, I have a perfect example. I have a client who uploaded a whole bunch of bills at 4 o'clock yesterday. Okay. I'm going to put them in today. Even if she proves them immediately, they're not even going to touch them until Monday. And then it's 3 days after that.
So we are rolling out. We're going to make a public release. We're rolling out overnight settlement. It's going to happen really, really soon, meaning before the end of the month, by about September 1st.
I want to go back to something though, so because you started to say that you might integrate with Bill.com. I'm curious to hear from you, like what that might look like.
So right now, the problem that you mentioned, the Bill.com takes so long and it's a pain. Just like QuickBooks, Checkbook will be an option in Bill.com. If we we haven't finalized, but we're not competing because we're never going to be in the business of accounting flow software. There are lots of companies who are doing that. We're a payment processor. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be looking similar to QuickBooks, where you can go in Bill.com and instead of the two current options, you'll see a third option, or maybe you won't see that paper check option.
To pay through Checkbook. Got it.
There you go.
Got it. So you can
And then we pay you a fee, not Bill.com.
I'm sorry?
And then we'll pay, because you've got your own fee schedule and Bill.com has their own fee schedule.
Yeah, so if you send out a paper check,
out.
so if you send out a paper check through Bill.com, they charge you $1.50, $1.49, right? And they bill you directly. But the same thing with us, it's probably going to be the same thing, 79 cents, half the price. And it's going to bill you the same way that they bill you for paper checks.
Right.
All right, and their ACH is 49 cents.
Yeah, once you get somebody on ePay through Bill.com, it's 49 cents each.
If you can get them.
Yeah, and we're going to move towards, like I said, the pricing is going to get lower, not higher.
And the problem is if the client says pay, I try to tell them not to pay it and give me a chance to invite and get a hookup.
Yeah.
Because once they pay,
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what I loved about Checkbook when I saw it, is it's so much easier to get a payment to somebody and to get set up. Now, by the way, when I'm receiving money from somebody through Checkbook, the way you showed us before where I can put it on my website, who pays the 79-cent fee, me or them?
It's always the originator.
So the person paying me through my web portal that you've given me the ability to provide, the person making the payment pays the fee.
The person initiating the payment, the business initiating the payment pays the fee. Yes.
Okay.
I got a paper check, and I think it's from you guys. It says this is a deluxe e-check. Did your paper checks go through?
No.
So this is
Deluxe is another paper check company in Minnesota. They do only paper check. That's got nothing to do with us.
Okay. I was just curious how your paper checks look.
Okay.
You
can show them on camera, JP. If we'll send you one. Give us your email address.
Send her $1. Send Sarah $1.
Yeah.
Let's create a new social media campaign.
We'll send you $1, then we'll charge you extra for receiving a paper check.
Well, I'm gonna set up my personal, my company, and play with it.
Please do.
Cool. All right. So, bottom line, people want to get signed up and start using this. They just go to checkbook.io or go to apps.com and add it in as an app. Earlier, when we were looking at this, you guys said something about downloading the app. I assume by that you simply mean installing it as an app working with QBO. There's nothing to actually download to my computer.
That is correct. Yes.
Right, yeah, because I can use it on my PC.
Yeah.
Is there a mobile app?
Coming in the works, probably in end of September, ballpark. But yes, iOS and Android, yes, it's in the works.
Beautiful. And then perfect note to leave on. Upcoming initiatives from Checkbook that we can look forward to over the next few months?
Well, the most major one that I said is permissioning ability, being able to designate senders versus viewers.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the big one. Overnight settlement. Number 2, and the third one is the mobile apps.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Overnight. Wow.
All right, very good. So unfortunately, we have to wrap up. But guys, thank you so much. This has been great. I hope everybody will, check this out and start using it. Is there an affiliate or partner program of any kind?
Oh, good question.
JP, you want to talk about that?
There is indeed, and I can help you get set up with that. It's very easy to set up, but we essentially compensate 10% of gross, and we can send you a reseller agreement. It's very straightforward and simple, but we would love the support, and I will help you sell it into anybody. So I'm a resource to you.
All right, so send it to me, and then everybody else has to sign up through me.
Mariette has a question about 1099 processing. How do you?
I would think you would just do that through QBO the way you normally would.
Through the software. They're just payment processors, right?
Yeah. We don't do the 1099s. QuickBooks does.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why the bill.com link up is important, because they're also a document management system.
Yeah.
Matching up the bill, copy of the bill. So.
And as far as that goes, I've actually become a fan of just using like track1099.com, and I just run the reports in QuickBooks, dump them into Excel, and import that into track 1099, because otherwise there's too many hoops to jump through even in QuickBooks in terms of making sure somebody's marked 1099 eligible and making sure their account is mapped as a 1099 account. I'd rather just run a report on all the payments to all the vendors and then sort by the amount total that they were paid for the year, get rid of anybody under 600, and then
pivot table.
What? Basically, I don't even do a pivot table. I just chisel it down in a spreadsheet to who really needs to get a 1099.
Because you need the address and the grand total on the same line.
And I need their email, right? So I basically chisel it down in an Excel file, import that into track 1099, and let them process it for me from there. It's actually so much faster than trying to even get QuickBooks to process the 1099s that way. And I do a video on it.
All due by January 31st this year.
Yep. Isn't it always?
Nope. Not for the government.
Oh, there's no like March deadline anymore?
Nope.
Really? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so maybe we'll talk about that in another one soon. But thank you guys. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
AP, send me the information so I can become your power affiliate. And
Yeah,
then,
I want an email. I want, what do we do? Sign up, log in. Let's see. How do we get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, we passed along a link, and if you provide your email and name, we'll send you a test check, and we can get started that way. But I'll also give all the info to Seth,
Okay.
and let him distribute as well. So we'll be in touch. And
yeah,
we
it was checkbook.io/type type equals Seth David, so they know you came through me.
IO/ what?
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna
Oh, there it
save.
is. I see it.
Where?
It was in the
Put
chat.
it in the chat way up there.
Way up top?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for. I saved the chat, so I'll get that out and send it out to all of you.
All
There
right.
you go.
There it is again. Checkbook.io/type equals Seth David.
Got it.
All right, you're all gonna make me rich.
Do
And
it.
you're going to make us rich. Seth.
10%.
That's right. I'm gonna stop providing training and accounting services. I'm just gonna be a checkbook reseller. That's it. I'm done. All right. We will see you all next week. I'll get the recording of this up by Monday, the latest. Usually I try to get it up tomorrow. It just depends after my hike if I have the energy to, process and upload a video. Sometimes that's really hard after a 2-hour hike. So,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you all. And we will see you next week. We'll see you later on. Gina's hang on. Gina had to leave, but I assume she's doing her weekly show at 2:30 Pacific and 5:30 Eastern. So hopefully some of you will see some of you there. I won't be able to make it, unfortunately. I'm always working at that hour. That's why I can never make it. But I try to jump in once in a while if I can. So we'll see you all later.
Thank
Seth.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
You guys.
Bye.
Bye.